Welcome back to NBC3 News at 5:30. Now, today, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell announced the addition of 3 women as senior advisors to the NFL. The commissioner has come under heavy criticism, as you all know, for in the last week or so now, for the way he handled the domestic violence incident involving Ray Rice. Goodell sent a memo to all teams saying the women will help forge the policies of domestic violence within the league. For more on these big changes, we bring in Karen Hargrave, who's a volunteer coordinator of the sexual assault program for Vera House. And Karen, thanks for being here, first of all.
Thank you.
Has Vera House had many phone calls since this took place, people with questions?
Anytime that we have any incident of domestic or sexual violence, we see an increase in the calls to our 24-hour hotline. And certainly anything getting this kind of publicity raises awareness, which is good, but we like that focus to be on prevention rather than on incidents that have already happened and caused violence to someone.
Karen, I'd love to get your perspective on having these women as additions to this advisory committee. What good might that do?
Well, just the fact that they have people who are going to be focused on those issues, and again, to focus on prevention rather than on incidents that have already occurred, will hopefully help bring light to that situation and keep it in the forefront rather than hearing about the incidents after it's already too late.
The NFL really has been almost a classic old men's club. Well, we're looking at the video of the Ray Rice incident here again as we talk, whether it be the players on the field, the owners of the teams, the people in the office, and even Roger Goodell, when he said there was going to be an independent investigation of the Ray Rice, he appoints the law firm that was already working for the NFL. So if they actually are reaching outside to these women, that is a big step in the change of their mindset.
It's a huge step in the right direction, and even in all of the publicity that you see of all these incidents, the focus immediately goes to the behavior of the person who's being abused, not to the behavior of the abuser. And we often parallel this to other crimes, saying if someone is a victim of a robbery, you don't blame the person who was robbed. And this is why people are hesitant to come forward. So.
We recently did a story involving some of the area football coaches and sort of getting them involved in this conversation. Are those kinds of efforts making a difference when it comes to talking about domestic violence? And then, you talk about prevention.
Yeah, locally we have a great coordination between our men's outreach coordinator, George Kilpatrick, and a lot of local football teams. So we do see that those efforts do pay off and make a difference, especially to those young athletes.
And before we wrap this up, I want to ask you also about the Adrian Peterson case. There's been so much discussion now in the last few days about disciplining a child. What kind of help does Vera House have if people have questions about, I grew up this way, this is the way my family always did it? Well, doesn't mean it's right. So do you have support there?
We certainly do on our 24-hour hotline. You can always reach out for support for parenting advice, for support for all kinds of discipline. We certainly do not ever condone any form of violence as discipline.
All right. Karen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Rihanna and CBS, they're splitting in the wake of the Ray Rice scandal. During last Thursday's game, CBS cut a portion of a song featuring Rihanna from the cast to cover the controversy surrounding Ray Rice. Rihanna has since released a profane tweet towards CBS in response to cutting the song. The company says they'll permanently edit out Rihanna's voice for the remainder of the Thursday night football games this season.
Meanwhile, Vikings running back Adrian Peterson says he's sorry for the, quote, hurt he brought to his son. The former NFL MVP is charged with child abuse in Texas after he allegedly spanked his 4-year-old son with a switch. Peterson says he's disciplining his son the way he was disciplined while he was growing up. Peterson also says while he isn't a perfect parent, he says he's not a child abuser.